Is on the 12 and I am clicking the record button. So it's time to get started. Welcome everyone to our AMTA webinar. We have one of these about every week, and this week's topic is whiteboarding techniques, brought to you by Aaron Conradi, Nell Bielecki, Tim Elson, and George Nelson. They're from all over the place, from Michigan, Chicago, Kansas, and Hawaii. So this is like whiteboarding. This is the National Whiteboarding Seminar. I'm going to turn this over to them, and I'm going to be quiet and take some notes. This is intended to be a discussion, not just a presentation. So I'll let them say more about this, but I think that if you have questions, they would want you to open up your mic and ask your question. So, presenters, all yours.
All right, thanks, Colleen. This is George talking from Crystal Lake, Illinois. Just a little bit about myself and my experience with modeling. I've been teaching for 10 years now, 8th grade science. It's mostly physical science in those 10 years. And during that time, I think about 7 years ago, I kind of fell into modeling at Arizona State, where Colleen McGowan, just speaking, introduced me to it. Got a master's in natural science that way, and fell into it right away, and totally was one of those people that I don't really buy into a lot of things here in education, but modeling was one of the things I definitely stuck with and fell into right away. Someone, Aaron or Nell or Tim, if you guys want to talk about your experience.
Sure thing. I'll go next. My name is Nell Bielecki, and I'm from the Detroit area. I teach 7th and 8th grade science in Berkeley, Michigan. I've been teaching for 18 years, and the last 4 I have been using modeling instruction in my classroom. I've taken 2 modeling instruction workshops on modeling in physics and modeling in the middle school, and I, like George, stumbled upon modeling, and I have not looked back. I'm super passionate about it, and it's definitely changed my instructional approach with my students in my classroom. So welcome to the webinar tonight.
My name is Tim Elson. I'm from Wichita, Kansas. I've been teaching for 6 years, and I like to brag that I've been modeling for 7 years, longer than I've been teaching. When I was a student teacher, I was introduced to modeling technique and, of course, fell in love with it and have been using it ever since. I wanted to add that if at any point you're wanting to throw out a question but you feel you can't get a word in, you can always type it into the chat box and we can see the question there. Oh, by the way, I teach 8th grade science.
I'm Aaron Conradi, and like George and Nell, I just stumbled into it and fell in love and haven't looked back. I taught 8th grade for about 12 years, and now I'm program manager for STEM Teachers NYC, but still very much involved with middle school. And then also, like Tim said, yeah, we would love to hear from you either via the chat, or you can unmute your mic and chime in at any point. We want this to be engaging for you. So I guess let's get started. We're here to talk about whiteboarding in the middle school classroom. So George, let's see. So we're going to start with just by introducing whiteboarding, classroom procedures, and management. We weren't going to spend too much time on this, but it is certainly something that you want to consider. We all are kind of on the same page where we like to get our kids whiteboarding right away, day 1 or day 2, even just having them introduce themselves using the whiteboard, using an activity that gets them observing, collecting data, and then sharing that data on the whiteboard right away. It really helps build a positive classroom environment and sets the tone for the whole year. Classroom procedures are always great with middle school kids. We have large class sizes, and you're moving around a lot when you're using modeling instruction and whiteboarding. So Having a bunch of procedures set in place is really helpful, and it just keeps things flowing. Even just procedures for getting their whiteboards and putting away their whiteboards, or how they set up for board meetings, every little thing is very helpful. I guess George or Tim, Nell, any particular one that you want to shout out about? Maybe a beginning of the year activity or a special procedure?
Yeah, I can talk first. What I try to do is on the first day of school, I mean, we usually have shortened classes, but instead of doing like a syllabus day or something, I try to get the kids going like right away. If you look at the slide, the 4 on the right-hand side, this is actually when they're prepping their whiteboards, and the one on the far left. Use the mystery tube activity. I was use a plastic tube where there's 4 strings, and they pull it, and it goes whatever end away. Actually, I wish I had a video of it right now, but I basically just tell them, how does this work? And they can't see what's going on in the tube. Kind of on the bottom right screen, right bottom part of the screen right here where the pointer's going. That's the object they were doing, the mystery tube. I just tell them to work in groups of 4 and then put on a whiteboard what they think's going on the inside, and I get them to circle up on the first day. The activity of them just kind of testing and making experimenting with the tube probably takes them 5, maximum 10 minutes. And then when we circle up, the kids talk about it, and at the end come to agreement how we think it works. Most groups come up with the way, most of them get it. But the bizarre thing for them is I don't tell them if they're right or wrong, and that really throws them because they obviously are really eager and anxious to figure out how it worked on the inside. And that really leads us nicely into what science is. And, science is, we're making predictions, doing experiments, we're collaborating, we're communicating, looking for patterns and trends in the whiteboards, and sets up really nicely for that the mystery of the unknown. Do we have good evidence and good reasoning how the tube works? But we're not 100% sure, and that is what science is. And they get into them constructing models, and the model is what they're thinking is going on in the inside of the tube. From there, the next day, I then set the classroom. We talked about as a class why that discussion went well, what were things good, what are things we can work on. And from there, then we just kind of list together some classroom expectations during the whiteboard discussion that we revisit throughout the school year.
Yeah, I would just add to that the great thing about modeling is that it's phenomenon based, and so coming up with it, something like the mystery tubes, or if you have your own creative thing that you like to get students' brains flowing right away, anything at all is pretty good for starting your whiteboards out.
Right, and then using those activities that you at the beginning of the year, it's also really nice to have the kids help come up with some of the expectations for constructing what a good whiteboard looks like, how to have good discussions too. It helps give them ownership of it. But that mystery tube activity is great. But yeah, there are a lot of really good ones out there. If anyone has one that they want to chime in with in our audience, we'd love to hear that.
I know they have a list on Cal Berkeley. It has 5 or 6 activities that are really good. There's also the mystery cube, which I can share. There's a mystery box where a steel marble rolls around on the inside, and the participants have to figure out what's going on the inside of the box. And obviously they can't open up the box during the activity.
Yeah, the mystery cube is actually a fabulous one to do. I've done that with my 8th graders, and it really gets them thinking about what the relationship is and the patterns that they see between the names on the cube and then the numbers on the cube. And what gets them every time is that I pick the cube up and I put it in the closet, and they really want to know what the answer is, but we're able to come to a consensus and have a conversation on why that discussion went well. And the kids really, they start to, get into this idea of how the class is going to be run using the whiteboards.
My school district really prefers for us to look at students using proportional thinking and graphing skills right away in 8th grade science. So there's many labs that you can choose from. Something as simple as stacking up cups, and students measure stacks of cups. I really like circumference versus diameter, looking at circles. or a big popular one around my district is the wingspan of a human versus their height, and it gives students a chance to start figuring out what do you want to put on your whiteboard and how to have a discussion.
Yeah, those are good ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I noticed on this slide, the bottom left with the red border of the bouncing ball activity, that you get good linear proportional data when you do that too. You change the independent, change the drop height, the dependent being the bounce height. That's always a good lab too, especially getting into energies.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Alrighty.
All right. So I guess we can move on to our next topic, or actually if you look at the next couple of slides here, you'll see that we have some procedures kind of listed on our slides, and some managing tips and things like that on here as well. This slide will be made available at the end or shortly after the end of the webinar, plus any links to documents that we have within here too. So you will have access to all this. And if we go to the next slide, okay, and then this one has some managing tips and things like that. Oh, one thing I would like to point out from this slide is just one thing that I found really helpful in the classroom is to prepare questions ahead of time. Oh, did the screen change?
I think George is just trying to unmute himself there.
Oh, okay. But we're not seeing the slideshow, right?
The slideshow comes and goes.
Sorry, we're back. I had a custodian come in. I had to mute it real quickly.
No worries.
Okay.
George, are you at school? I take it?
Yep.
Got it.
So
Okay.
are we seeing the slide now, or?
Yes, you're seeing the slide, and it's just the slide that says add-ons from our discussion. I took some notes while you were talking that did not appear on the previous slide. So
perfect. Great, thanks. My connection got lost off my computer, so I guess I'm not seeing the same screen everyone else.
Yeah.
All right, so then just to point out too, Colleen is taking notes on anything new that comes up that is not already in this slideshow. So if you do add something into the chat, we can add it in here, or if you take your mic off mute and have a good lab or a fun procedure that works really well for your middle school kids, we would like to hear it. So one more chance to shout out anything that you want to comment on related to starting the year off right, or classroom procedures, or managing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you're someone that needs to, have graphing labs at the beginning of the year, especially like linear data and proportional reasoning, you just Google linear data labs. There's a plethora of different ideas that you can get.
So true. Okay, well, let's move on to our next slide or segment here. And the next one is just what to whiteboard, when to whiteboard, and how often to whiteboard. We all were talking, and we're all on the same page with this as well. As we whiteboard regularly, not necessarily every day, but certainly 1 to 3 times a week, maybe more like 2 to 3 times. But as you're going throughout the year, to kind of keep it from getting stagnant or whatever, it's really useful to use a lot of different whiteboarding methods as you're going. So there are a lot of fun things you can do with whiteboards besides just the typical, collect data and record it on your whiteboard and share out in a board meeting, which is, the standard way of doing it, and it works great. But sometimes for fun and just for variety's sake, it's good to try some different ones. And Nell has some that she's going to share on some of the next slides. We have some photos of her students doing some fun things with whiteboards.
Sure thing. George, did you want to talk about any of the pictures here on the intro slide?
Some of these are just different whiteboard activities, different styles of whiteboard discussions that I do, but we can come back. I can revisit that later.
Okay. So we can go on to the next slide.
Okay.
So these are my students in my classroom, and we had just recently finished a lab on soil and water and the heating and cooling rates of both and how they might affect the air above those surfaces. And after we had finished the lab and collected our data and made our graph, we did a whiteboarding activity called Experts and Gatherers in a gallery walk style. And in these photos, we had in each table group, I have 7 of them in my classroom. I asked one student from each of the groups to stay with their board and be the quote unquote expert. And I had the remaining kids from each table group rotate around in a counterclockwise fashion. And we spent about a minute and a half at each board, and the expert's job was to explain their thinking on how they could explain these results to the other students. And the gatherers, as they were walking around, they were looking at the boards, interpreting them, analyzing them, and acting as little spies to see if there was anything that the expert had mentioned or shown or drawn that they could take and add to their board after the activity was finished. So these are just 5 different pictures of students doing this particular activity. So I like this activity to prepare students to go into our circle meeting so that they have an opportunity to at least see everyone's board and understand their thinking before we come to a consensus on what the results showed.
Yeah, now I also use this activity too, and I really like it because my first couple of years doing modeling instruction, I would have everyone circle up and they'd do presentations there where one group would talk, and I'd have 8 total lab groups and we'd go around the circle, and I noticed it was less engaging for the students. So when I switched it over to an expert and gatherers where you have these mini groups like this and I just had them rotate, I usually have a timer on Google and usually give them about 45 seconds at each station. So when we circle up, we're just ready to talk about what they saw on all the whiteboards, and they don't need to wait for everyone to present and everyone to be quiet. I noticed it worked a lot more for the management. Like you said, now it helps expedite the situation where you can get right to the point and circle up.
Yep, absolutely. So that's one of the ones that I really like, and the kids really like it too. And I find that they, sometimes quarrel with each other at their table groups. You were the expert last time, I want to be at this time. So it works really well. I like this.
Yeah, we have a handout too to go with this too. So this is one way of doing whiteboard discussions, and the handout that's attached, that'll be attached to this PowerPoint. We'll give you a whole variety of different ways and when to use them.
Yep. And I think George, maybe we can go on to the next slide. And this is another version of a gallery walk, and my students had just finished our unit on astronomy, and they had completed a study guide. And when they came in the next day, each table group was assigned 4 to 5 questions from the study guide, and I gave them about 10 minutes, and they had to come to consensus on what they felt the strongest answer was for the study guide. And they always have the opportunity to present their board in any fashion that they want, whether they want to use pictures, words, diagrams, graphs, numbers, charts. It's completely up to them, but they have to put their answer on the board. And then instead of having one person stay behind, each table group rotates similar counterclockwise fashion for 2-3 minutes, and they have sticky notes in their hands this time. And we talk about what productive comments look like prior to the discussion. And so I asked them to make a comment, a suggestion, a question, an agreement, something that relates to the content that's on the board. And you'll notice that they all had the same instruction, but every board looks a little bit different. Some of them just preferred a lot more pictures, others preferred a lot more words, but I really like this for a review, for a test, because in years past, it was very, very boring and very tedious. And I did all of the talking and, number 1, who got this, number 2, who got that. We went through the answers, and it just, I did not look forward to those days. And I think it was, not very good for the kids either. And I definitely like this a lot better. George, Tim, Aaron, do you guys do gallery walks with the sticky notes?
Definitely.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Tim, you can go.
No, I was just saying yes. So go ahead, George.
I do this review a lot before tests and quizzes. And then the sticky notes, I give them that prompt. If they agree, say why. If they disagree, like what did they get? And really good, gets them up, gets them moving. And then when I have them recircle back up right before they get to the last whiteboard, before they come back to their own group, so they're walking around in a circle. When they turn their whiteboards in, I just tell them, hey, summarize the sticky notes. Do they agree or disagree? Is there any changes you need to make? Usually when we recircle back up, there's not a whole lot of discourse because most of it's already happened prior to that with the sticky notes. But then the groups that came back to it can make corrections. And, it's really good, gets right to the point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed Jamie had written in the chat, that sometimes the kids use the sticky notes to criticize and be negative, or try to point out faults and what the kids do wrong. But I think it's a really easy fix is just a quick conversation, before you start of what it means, to help someone with their understanding, and just even a few prompts on the board, like George was saying, I agree because, I disagree because, and then they give a reason why, will alleviate some of that criticism and those negative comments.
Yeah, and just to add to that with the management, what I always do is when I hand out the sticky notes or I have a student go around is I usually have about 4 different colors of sticky notes. So there's only 2 groups that have the same color. And on top of it, I have them write with a small number on the bottom corner, the group number. So if a group has a question for another group that wrote it on the sticky note, they know which group number they can call on. So if you have them write their number on there or just have it color coded, that usually helps alleviate the situation as well.
Yeah, and I noticed in the chat box too, Teresa asked if there was any guidelines that we can provide. I have a document that I put up on the projector that I'd be happy to share with Aaron, and we can add that to the slideshow. Just guidelines so that they stick to the meat and potatoes and don't stray with the negativity and the criticisms and nitpicking.
Right. Yeah, you don't want nitpicking. And another thing you can do is have them add a compliment to the board too. I know I've done that before, and the students, they are excited to go back to their board to see what compliments were left for them.
Yeah.
And it kind of helps keep it that more positive.
Mm-hmm.
Another strategy that I've heard, this is Colleen, another strategy that I've heard about that follows up whiteboard meetings with sticky notes is a teacher that I know has her students write a tweet, a low-tech tweet on a sticky note and stick it on her classroom door as they depart. It's like an exit ticket about what they learned from the board meeting, just distill it down to 140 characters. And back in the day when tweets were 140 characters, and it really makes them think, what was the point? What was the point? Can I put it in a sentence or two? Yeah, sticky notes are powerful tools.
We have in the chat a question about using silent conversation as a part of a whiteboard review. Has anyone or any of us used it, or anyone in the audience done that?
I have not used it, and I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure I know what it is.
Hi, guys, it's Ariel. I've done this as a silent conversation. I'm a high school teacher, but I'm really excited about these ideas. What I've done is my students in their groups, I have them each have a whiteboard with a problem on it, and each group has to, not talking to each other or anybody else, and they have different color dry erase markers, begin to answer the question on the whiteboard, and I time them, and then, say 2 minutes for the first one as they're getting started. And then they have to rotate no matter where they are and then go to the next board and then add on to that conversation without talking to each other and add something new or make a comment on it. And then the boards are filled with different color markers. And at the end, you cycle back to your original board.
Ariel, I have a question then. Does every team start with the same question?
No. So imagine this is a test review. So you take your review pack and, hey, you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. So everybody's starting with a different question. So you have no idea where the other group left off until you get there.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I really like to try that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And then it's decreasing amounts of time for each group. Hey, the first group might be long as they're getting started, but then you need progressively less time as they go on. And it's really kind of fun.
Huh, that's a great idea. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I like that.
I was trying to figure out what to do
similar, but I haven't kept it silent before. I like the idea of keeping it silent and speeding it up as you go too. Those are really cool to do with that.
Ariel, would you write that up like a little blog post that we can put in our newsletter that we're getting ready to publish?
Sure, with my spare time. Yeah. But Colleen, if I forget, just remind me.
Okay. So
just
like
to add to this.
By the first of the year, and it doesn't have to be long, but this is a strategy I've never heard of that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I just kind of, I had heard bits of like a silent conversation when I taught history a million years ago, and I just came up with this on the fly for a review last year. So I don't know if anybody else did something similar.
Yeah, I got something similar. So here's like this will be attached to the PowerPoint that you guys will have after this. Whiteboarding strategies. I've heard of that. That sounds similar to speed dating, and that the instructions for it are on the second page here. There's two versions of speed dating. And these ones you have them talk, but I mean you can obviously easily modify that for.
There's that document I think is already linked in here and a few slides ahead, so we can be sure to click on it and show it.
Yeah, we don't need anyone taking copious amounts of notes. It's all in here for people's.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I like the modifications for sure of the silent part and the timing of it and like speeding it up as you go. It sounds really fun.
Alrighty.
Okay. Are we ready for the next? Are we ready for this? Are we ready for this one?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay, so this is just another whiteboarding strategy that I use with my students, and this was after we had discussed some ways that heat might transfer, and we just gave them a question on the board: how does a lava lamp work? And we had a little video going for 20 minutes of a lava lamp, and we had one in class, and this was just before any formal instruction on convection currents and how heated substances might move and cooler substances might move, and we use the lava lamp as our sort of anchoring activity. And these were some of the boards. These were some of their ideas and their explanation on how a lava lamp works. And what I love about them is that they're all very different, and they all pulled from various resources that we had discussed from our heat transfer activities before this. Some of them chose to draw pictures, others used words, others used, showed a convection cell. And the beautiful part about this is that not all of the boards came from students who were very, bright. Some of these boards are students that have IEPs and they come from special education classrooms, and it just levels the playing field for all the kids because all of their ideas are valid. So I really like this one too.
It's a great example of multiple representations. In my district, we have a real push for multiple representations of things. So visual and verbal and all those different ways that students can access their knowledge. So that's a great example of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And they all had the same instruction. It was just one question, and that was, how does a lava lamp work? And these were just some of the boards, that they had created.
There's a comment from Lindsay asking about if we take photos for students to refer back to and revise their models. Yes, I certainly took a lot of photos of whiteboards, and students would take pictures of their own whiteboards so they can refer back to them later. And if they keep digital notebooks, that works really great too.
Yeah, and
anyone else want to chime in?
You know what? I also take pictures of all of their whiteboards. I take pictures of everything, whether it's homework, the preconceptions, after we come to our key points from our consensus, for a consensus in our circle meetings. And I found that uploading them to Google Classroom is huge. And I take pictures of them, I upload them so that all the kids can always go back to refer to the drawings. And that way I don't feel pressure to hang on to anything on the whiteboard, because I know that they always have those things there for them to reference. So if you're not on Google Classroom, like, that's my little plug for it. It's amazing.
So that's a great question from Caitlin. What happens if you come across a situation where students just want to write, "I don't know," on their board?
One thing I ask them is, if you did know, what would you write? And that usually gets them going with something, at least.
Yeah, I think we should open this up to other people. So we've got, about 35 people here. I'd like to hear from somebody else. Like, if you get stuck in that situation of a student saying, they have their whiteboard in front of them, they have their marker in their hand, and they say, "I don't know what to put down." Like, how do you address that?
I mean, if I have a group that's reluctant to prep their whiteboard, the one thing I always point to them to do is like, "Hey, why don't you work as a group? What did you guys get on this lab? What was your results? Or tell me what you think. Let's not worry about being right or wrong. Just tell us what you think, and we'll just open it up to the class afterwards." So I just tell them, as a group, work together and put what you think.
Yep. Just come up with one possibility, and don't worry about being right or wrong.
Yeah, I like what Jamie Bowman said there about we have a big discussion early on about whether or not there is a right answer or not. So I try to steer clear from them thinking that a whiteboard is supposed to present the right answer to anything.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big hang up sometimes.
I like what Stephen wrote. My favorite response to "I don't know" is, "Of course you don't know. We're learning this for the first time."
Right.
So true. Okay.
George, let's go on to the next slide. We're ready.
Yeah, and the next slide is just a simple activity, just checking homework. And this is not one that I have them do on their individual whiteboards, although sometimes I will. But in this instance, I have a very large whiteboard in the front of our class, and I just go around to each group. And you'll see on the whiteboards, it says like Hawke, Curie, Newton, Galileo, because my tables are labeled by scientists. And I will just walk through and just assign them a number and say, discuss with your table mates what answers you got to number 3. And then when you're ready, go up to the whiteboard and write it out. And then we're going to just go through the answers as a class. We'll, see if we agree, we disagree, if we have any questions, and then we will move on. And of course, they can fix their answers on their papers if they didn't finish or they didn't have it, because my preference is that they have the information, as we go through it in the class.
Great. Thanks, Nell.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think we can go on to the next slide, which just kind of summarizes what we were just talking about. There's a variety of different ways you can use the whiteboards and purposes for using whiteboards in the classroom. So besides sharing data and observations, it's great for using to just brainstorm lab procedures that they want to come up with to conduct their own experiment. Summarizing, coming to a consensus, reviewing before a test and such. There is also a link on the slide down at the bottom on more methods. And if George wants to click on that real quick, that's to the document that we were referring to before that mentions the speed dating. And this was prepared for by some other modelers. Erica Posthumous Adams was one of them, and I think there were a couple other contributors as well. But this has a list of different ways you can use the whiteboards in the classroom.
So the kids.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. My connection was lost, so I might have missed something. We could go on to the next slide too, which is where Colleen has added in all those great ideas we just got and we're discussing. So those are now there for us to refer back to later when we can get this slideshow. Someone's asking, is it possible to get a list of the whiteboard approaches? So that document that's linked in there, you will have access to. So on eWebLife, there's a link on there where you can look at the webinar resources, and you would just find this one, and you can get the PowerPoint plus all the documents we have linked in here, and we have more linked. And there will also be the recording of the whole webinar as well. Okay, are we ready to move on? Any questions or comments or things you want to throw out?
I think we're ready to move on.
Okay.
And I hope the audience knows they can chime in at any time. You don't have to wait to those slides or anything. You guys are doing a great job in the chat box, but feel free to chime in anytime throughout the entire presentation.
For sure, yes. You need to check. How much is it? So our next segment is just about getting students participating during the activities and whiteboard creation. And so then if we're on the next slide, you'll see some students engaged creating their whiteboards. And just a few tips that I'll throw out there, but we would love to hear from you as well during this section, because everyone has different experiences, and well, actually, in each class period is very different. So some groups and class periods just go right easy. It's very easy, and they're engaged in doing everything they need to, and the next class period struggles. One of the best things, or at least for me, that was very helpful, is just questioning them, and I'm always moving around the room, checking out what they're doing with their activities and creating their whiteboards, and listening in and chiming in with a question and complimenting things I like, and that usually got them pretty engaged and kept them on task.
Yeah.
If you are struggling though with having everyone in the group participate, maybe it's being dominated by one or two students, you can assign group roles, which often helps at that age too. So you can have, the speakers, a couple of recorders, a team manager, and that type of thing, but still hold everyone accountable. You can assign different colored markers to students if you want to have everyone creating the whiteboard together. If you're noticing that one person, again, is dominating the whole board and others are off task or something like that. Any other suggestions from other people or fellow leaders?
I can only talk from my first year of using modeling instruction to now, and the first part that I got frustrated at first is that out of a classroom of 30, 35 kids when I was in Arizona, I'd only get like 3 or 4 kids talking, so I was pretty frustrated with that, and I was trying to figure out how can I get those other kids to talk. So my first approach was making it a participation grade where I did tallies, and there's a lot of reasons why that did not work in my room. But I think most importantly is it really set wasn't like a relaxed atmosphere at that point. And also I wasn't able to track the discourse. I'm not someone that can multitask well, at least. And so when I was taking tallies I wasn't able to keep up with the students' discourse. So one thing I caution is, just my personal opinion, is don't grade at all for participation and the kids that don't talk. What I get to get those students that don't talk is there's 2 ways I look at it. Is one, they're talking when they're doing the lab and they're prepping the whiteboard and doing the worksheets and all that with their groups. Another way you can get them, so if they don't talk during the whiteboard discussion, there's a lot of discourse they had prior going into the discussion. As far as getting them to talk as a whole class, what Nell showed before, shared with the expert and gatherers, I usually tell them, like, hey, because if I can't get them to talk in front of the whole class because they're shy, and honestly, when I was one of those kids, I wasn't going to be someone that was going to talk in front of the whole entire class either. Make them an expert, so they're only talking in a micro group instead of the whole entire classroom. And then if I have classes where I just can't get the kids to talk, I use a strategy called I got this from a book I read on Minds on Mathematics, where it's called warm calling and cold calling. Instead of just calling kids out in the discussion, like, hey, you need to talk to say in front of the whole class, what do you think, or what was your answer to this and why? I do the turn and talk move, where I let them turn and talk to their groups. Usually I ask a question, I use my wait time, and if no one says anything, I say turn and talk to your groups 30 seconds. And I'll just go up to two random groups, be like, hey, I need you to talk for your group, and I'll go up to another group, hey, I need you to talk to your group. So when we come back, reconvene, I say, okay, what did you guys get?
Yeah, you guys are going to see a great example of George's classroom doing that. In about 3 slides, we've got a quick video, and George has a great example that you'll see where they get quiet. He proposes a question to the class, and the class just kind of goes dead. You hear a few people want to get involved, but most people don't, and you can see George improvise the way that the best modelers can do, which takes practice for sure. And he then turns it to the class, and he does that turn and talk move. So that'll be a great example to see in a little bit.
I think we could even use that as our segue right into the videos, because unless our audience has like a question or something, which they'll still be related in a couple of slides anyway, because we kind of transitioned into a little bit about just getting them to participate, not just during activities and whiteboards. And our next section is about getting them to participate during the discussion part too, which for me as well was often the trickiest part. They're better in the small group, but to get everyone on task and listening and contributing and paying attention was a little bit tricky. So I think we could go on to that slide, which looks like we're there. And
all right, you ready to roll?
Take over?
Yeah, we ready to roll it?
Yeah.
But the outcome, the patterns, everyone's saying is about the same, right? Well, I should probably lead into this. So in this, what we're doing in this lab, we're in the 8th grade science unit, structures and properties of matter. Basically, they're at this point just studying at the particle level. What are things doing when we just introducing the concept energy. I'm basically introducing energy transfer between warmer and colder waters, and we're talking about from there. Then I'm just leading to energy transfer and how, yeah. So you'll see the discussion. So this is about in my chemistry unit. This is probably like 2.5, 3 weeks into the unit. Probably more like 2 weeks.
You're saying the temperature is falling between. Yeah. Okay, so what do we think is going on at the particle level that causes that? 30 seconds. Talk to your groups. What do you think is going on? Water sample 1, water sample 2. 30 seconds. What do you think is going on?
Oh.
And the next video is about 30 seconds later. So, George, if you'll click on that other one.
Yeah.
In between, what do we think is going on at the particle level now that's causing
So like the let's say there were like 7 particles in the hot water and 7 particles in the cold water, and if you mix them, like the particles, it says like they go together and like they move faster. So they the hotter one probably like match up with a colder particle, and it makes it warmer. The colder one.
I actually think that when the hot water, since it moves faster than cold temperature water, like average temperature water, when the hot water combines with the cold water that's slower, they both have like an average pace to move that. So cold water picks up in space and hot water slows down, so they combine and make the same.
Can I get this to 5? Oh, what Alex said 5, I understand what she's saying. 0, I'm not sure. 3, I'm going to see that kind of 50. I see a lot of 5s. Are we okay with that? So we agree with that? Yeah. So if I hear you right, you're saying then that the particles, which one is going faster, the hot water or the cold water?
Yeah, so that was wrapping up the discussion, just getting into energy transfer. I believe we ended the class 2 that day with the discussion. We did a claim evidence reasoning statement to conclude that part of the discussion. Is there any questions or anything about that? I'm not sure what
I'm seeing some comments in the chat. First one I'm seeing is they're wondering where you got your stands from.
Oh, that stands are from Phil Root, a modeler at down in Arizona State. I can share that in here. Aaron, I'll send it to you so we can attach that as a PDF. Very simple design.
Okay.
You actually probably pull it up the design right now. Well, I'm not sure if we want to get into all of it right now, but yeah, I definitely do have it all in there.
And someone in the chat is also mentioning that they use ring stands, and that works pretty well too. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, this is the document right now. I'm showing the whiteboard stand design. Pretty simple, although I don't know why my computer is working really slow right now. Yeah, you need a circular saw, and you just take it's a huge 2x8 by 10, and you just cut it. Basically, there's a big slit, and you put it on an angle. And from there, this is all from me. This is the top view. This is the side view. This is all from Phil Root, but it's worked well. It's light. It's durable. The kids drop them. They don't break. I had another design before, but I didn't notice the kids were breaking them very often. So I've only broken one of these this year. So for me, that's pretty good.
Yeah, they are cool. Maybe you could even get a volunteer parent who likes to do stuff like that, make those.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I think then if we go on, we do have 2 more short little video clips. And this one is going over a worksheet with a whole class in George's classroom. A couple of clips if we want to show those too.
Yeah, so this is what they're doing in this worksheet. I think this is like the follow-up activity for that lab, or 2. This is like 2 or 3 follow-up. We did about 2 more labs after that discussion about energy transfer. So we've gone over things like temperature, heat, thermal energy, and now they're using energy bar charts. If you're familiar with the AMTA curricula, you'll see a lot more now the student-to-student course in these discussions.
All right. Group number 1, question 1 said you have a stick of butter and you heat it up on a pan. Group 1, can you explain your work? Say your answer and explain why you got it that way.
So since the butter is on the pan, it's getting heated up, so the more energy is added. So we started at 5, and then we went up 2. So like the energy flow went up 2, and then we got 7. Wait, what did you start at? How many bars? 5. It doesn't make sense because solids are 2 bars. Yeah.
Wait, so how many bars?
Solids should be 2 to 3 bars. Yeah. And then because that's less than. Yeah, and then liquid should be 5 to 6, and gas should be 9. I didn't see that.
Should they change theirs then?
Yeah.
Okay, so how many should they have at the beginning?
They should probably have 2. Probably 2, yeah. And it came right out of the fridge.
Yeah, so this is my class at the end of the day, and they're really good at able to critiquing each other and getting right to the point. I guess we'll jump a little further in the discussion now.
Oh yeah, so 5, like we said that it should be 5 because it starts out really cold, so 5 is just like the lower number. And then energy transfers into it once it's sitting on the counter, so then it goes up 1 bar.
You guys agree? How come? Are you guys are both saying an energy retention system? Is that right?
Yeah.
So they're both being up.
Yeah.
We all right with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone disagree?
No.
Okay. Let's go to question 3 then.
Yeah. So
I really like that in part there. One thing that I think people overlook is to not just confirm when students have right answers. So if you notice, George there was like, "Are we okay with that?" And typically that would be a teacher hinting at, "Oh, something's wrong here. Are we okay with this?" But that was a great move by George to have everybody think about, like, are we okay with that? And so I just wanted to highlight that. I think George did a great move there with asking the entire class, even though they thought they had a right answer. He said, "Are you okay with that?"
trying to have a poker face.
There you go.
Yeah. Alrighty.
All right. The next slide is just some photos here. The top one is a nice panoramic photo of a whiteboard meeting.
That image at the top is my classroom, and that's what I've done to try and avoid having to have whiteboard holders is that I have groups of 3, and I put 2 people in charge of a marker, and 1 person is going to be the guest speaker, so that 2 people will also hold up the board while the speaker sits out front. So at no point can anybody hide from it. They're either writing on the board or they are sharing information to the rest of the classroom.
Okay, so we could probably, we're starting to run short on time here. But if we move on to the next slide after that, it's just a bulleted list of some of the ideas we have already shared regarding just getting the kids talking in the classroom. And it's also important to remember that each class is different and may require different types of scaffolding as well. And I think Nell has a couple really cool ideas to help either just one class period that's really struggling with the discussion, or possibly all the classes if it's to get them going in the beginning of the year, or used to talking anyway.
Yeah, you know what? I definitely think it's important to provide each class the supports that they need, so that they feel comfortable in the circle meeting. And some of the things that I've tried in my classroom, one thing that I've had great success with is something that I call like a warm-up intro. And when we go into our consensus meeting, if they're very, very reluctant to speak, or it just kind of, I have that dead silence, I try to throw out a question, maybe something like, what do you prefer, candy or chocolate? And just let the kids talk about something that is very comfortable to them and non-threatening. Or I might say something like, someone told me to watch Stranger Things on Netflix. Have you guys heard of that show? And just to get them talking to each other and responding to each other without that fear of the science talk. So I've tried that. My next level of support that I've used in a classroom is if they're still reluctant to speak about the science for various reasons, I hand them an index card and I ask them to put their name on it. And I put 2 questions on the board. And the first one is, what is preventing you from participating? And the second question I have them answer is, how can I support you during our circle meeting? And I just ask them for an honest reflection, and then I collect them and I read their responses and see what type of support they need from me in order to, get our conversation going. And then if that breaks down and I'm still, struggling with getting the conversation going, I might do like an expert gatherer gallery walk, or I might do a gallery walk where they can visit each board and view the results ahead of time before our circle meeting. And then I might hand them a bookmark that Erin has later in the presentation, where they might, I ask them to use any of the prompts on there, either for clarification or extension or agreement or confusion or disagreement, and they have to choose two to write about a board that was not theirs. And then I ask them to bring those index cards into the circle meeting so that they have something already, so that it alleviates the anxiety that they have to think of something on the spot, that they have like a go-to on their index card. And then another support might be to actually show video clips of students in a modeling discussion. I haven't gotten to that support just yet, but just showing them what the expectation is, or what you would like them to do, I think would be a great support. But I think it all goes back to understanding that each class is different, and although you use the same introductory routines in each one, the reactions from the kids might be different, and just their social interactions might be different for a variety of reasons. So I think it's our job to provide those supports so that they feel comfortable and they're able to kind of get their thoughts out, because that's the point. Does anyone have any other ideas for supports that they've used in their classes?
I think we should move ahead a few slides since we're running to the end.
Sure, yeah. So the next slide, it looks like Colleen has been busy typing away in there from our add-ons. And then in the next one, we have a bunch of links to documents, which if George wants to click on some of them in here, or all of them real quick, so you can see what each one is. Some of them are to articles that we really like. Oh, go ahead, George.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want me to share, just the one that I really am a big fan of is the Talk Science Primer, which this obviously is not it. Let me see if it's linked. There we go. Talk Science Primer. This is probably the best thing I've ever read in education, especially for science education, the Talk Science Primer. It's about like 19 pages, but if you look, it's not too much text on the page. I mean, you could probably knock it out in like 30, 40 minutes, but it's the best thing I've read. It really sets a lot of goals, and I really struggle at first with getting my students to talk. And in here, when you get to page about 11, page 12, so it gives you the goals for what to get out of discussions and these things called talk moves, the 9 talk moves. And if you saw the video, I was using a lot of these phrases in there. And this is like, for me, the holy grail of getting kids to talk is these questionings that I give the students.
Yeah, it's a main part of what I do in my classroom is based on that document there. So if you haven't spent any time with it, definitely you should.
Can you talk more about, say a bit more about how you introduce this to the students, or how you help them learn about it and practice it and get up to speed on it?
It's more for a teacher's perspective, how to get the kids talking. So I don't introduce the kids to this. These are just my own personal goals that I'm trying to get the kids to do. So these are talk moves that I'm saying. There is a document for student talk moves. It looks like this. I don't know, Erin, if you guys want to get more into this, but here are student talk moves that you can use with your students, like phrases that they can say to help promote the discourse in the classroom.
Yeah. Earlier. Oh, go ahead, Annette.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that if you look earlier in this webinar, there were definitely some awesome links people posted that show very similar student talk moves and things you can print out and laminate and hand to students to get students more involved. But yeah, the Talk Science Primer is teacher focused, not student driven.
And you can also use those student talk moves and make bookmarks and hand those out to the kids, or put them on the back of the whiteboards, or display them in the classroom so that they always have reference to them to help prompt the discussion.
All right. It looks like we're at 7 o'clock. Should we try and wrap this up?
I think we wanted to open this up to whether or not people were interested in following this up with some things. Things we didn't quite get to maybe, or didn't spend enough time on. Questions that you guys had coming to this webinar that still are unanswered, those kinds of things.
I will leave this webinar connection open as long as people want to talk, within reason. I do have to go make dinner eventually, but the hour is up, and if you have to leave, thanks for coming. But if you want to stay around, stay around.
Looks like Anne put a link to a video, talk moves.
Yeah, actually, I've used the, teachingchannel.org, and if you look up talk moves, there's quite a few teachers that have posted videos of them using the talk moves in their class. So if you haven't used them before, you can kind of see how that would look in a classroom. And I've tried using this too as well, and it has helped a lot. And you do have to kind of model and work with the students like an introductory activity or so on, not necessarily maybe on a science board, but maybe, or on a science topic, but maybe like just like a question about, what do they, I posed it with, what do you think scientists do, or how do scientists learn science? And the students kind of came up with some of their own ideas and talked about it. And then I kind of used the talk moves to get them asking each other questions about what they think, so that they can actually kind of go into more detail, and they can learn a little bit more about how to interact with each other and how to have that social conversation about a content topic. So it helped a lot.
I try to early on in the school year give my students false information, and I try to get it to a point where one student will notice and maybe question that, and everybody will then have information they've been taking down and realize like the teacher doesn't have all the answers. I use it as an example to highlight that this is not a classroom where I'm giving them information and they need to know what I know, but rather this is based on their learning and their conversations and what they get out of it, not what I bring to them.
There's a lot in the chat right now. I'm having a hard time keeping up. Let's see it. Anyone from the chat want to chime in with something that you put in there that you want us to discuss? I saw Expo markers drying out very fast. Yes, that's a bummer. I know, it's tough.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, big thank you.
And thank you to the team for presenting. We really appreciate this, and I suspect that there will be plenty of downloads of this presentation and the attached resources. If there's anybody here who has a suggestion for follow-up webinars, we're looking for webinar ideas for our spring schedule. If there's anybody here on this call who'd be willing to give a webinar, you got some good ideas to share, share them. we'd like to have that. That this is, I don't know. I think that this community type of conversation is really what keeps modelers going. So, drop me a note.
One suggestion in there. I see one in here. Setting a culture for. Oops, I just lost it. Oh, there it is. Setting the culture for student discourse in the classroom.
That's a great topic too.
Yes, it is. It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to say people are leaving and no one is talking. Oh, wait, no, but they're all chatting, aren't they?
Yeah, there's chats happening.
I want you all to know. I want you all to know that when we close the connection, the chat goes away. So speak. It's so much more interesting to hear your voice.
We have a lone modeler in her school there. I see Caitlin.
Yeah.
I too was one. And I think Nell is too. Right? Is that right?
Yes, that is correct, Caitlin. You are not alone. I am the lone modeler in my school, and I had one friend from another middle school take the workshop this past summer, but she's not in my building, so you're not alone.
In general, teaching is solitary work. We go in our rooms and we shut our doors and we do, we do the best we can with what we have. And I think it's so important for us to know that we have a bunch of modelers who have our back, basically. We have those listeners where people can, ask questions, get answers, commiserate, share ideas, and we have these webinars where we can do a little more focused version of the same thing. And I think that it gives us some kind of extra special boost that a lot of teachers don't have.
And don't forget about Twitter.
That's true.
Twitter conversations are great.
You know what? I wish I was maybe 10 years younger, and I might be more of an effective tweeter. I'm glad you guys have figured out how to use it.
And if it's Caitlin who's the lone modeler, it's okay. I just got a bio modeler at my school. Everywhere I've been the only modeler. Teresa's the only modeler at her school. And we're working hard at bringing more modelers in. So keep spreading the good word. We're all around.
That's right. You're making your own modelers, aren't you?
You're here.
Yes, we are.
Colleen, will the chat be available in the webinar as well?
The chat is a separate recording that we can that we can make available as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I'm seeing a question about how large are the whiteboards that we're using in the photos. The fairly standard size. George, Tim, Nell, are you just like going to Home Depot and getting them cut up into about 2 by 3?
And I responded, mine are all the large whiteboards where you go to Lowe's and I forget the exact measurements, but you get like 5 large whiteboards from one huge, shower board sheet. And then I think mini one.
Yeah.
So it's like a standard size.
It's 24 by 32 inches. If you slice a 4 foot by 8 foot sheet of shower board into 6 equal slices, you get 24 inches by 32 inches.
And I'm also seeing a comment in there for a future webinar on having special ed kids in the classroom, and just for a future webinar I hear from Deb, it looks like.
Great idea.
Yep. That's one thing I loved about Whiteboard, though, is I really felt like the special ed population felt so much more included. They were, you wouldn't know, like coming into a classroom, if they were on an IEP or if they were in advanced math. They were all just working together. I loved that. Was one of my favorite things about whiteboarding.
It's also really good for ESL. For kids who are not native English speakers, kids can figure out how to communicate with other kids. And
that multiple representations there is key.
Yeah, I've recently had some kids with ADHD, and they do very interesting things sometimes in the large group because they like to talk a lot. And so if they're having a good day, that can really help facilitate the conversation. But if they're having a bad day, it can really just derail it because they just keep talking and don't listen very well to others. So it depends on the day and how they're doing stuff.
Huh. Yeah, I think that would be a great webinar. We need to find some people who know something about this. Edge your whiteboards with black Gorilla Tape and they last longer. Interesting.
I use duct tape and that works pretty good too. And you can make some pretty colors.
Huh.
A modeler once taught me that he likes his whiteboards to be half destroyed, and I asked him why. And he said, because everyone knows that we use them.
That's great.
I ended up having about 5 dozen whiteboards because they kept walking away from my classroom. I started out with I think I started out with 2 dozen whiteboards, and by the time I left teaching high school, I had 5 dozen whiteboards because the social studies teacher wanted to borrow them, and the student council wanted to borrow them, and the science club wanted to borrow them, and they were a very hot item.
And put your names on the back of them so you can try and get them back.
Well, it wasn't that big a school. I could just walk around the school and see them. But, I was happy they were getting used. They were cheap. I didn't mind getting more. That's nice. A parent organization that donated a set for each teacher. That's really nice. And then when some teachers don't want their set, they give them to you. And then you're like the whiteboard king or queen of the department. Are we done? What do you think?
Thanks, everybody. It was great.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Do you know we had about 40 people? That's just unheard of.
That's phenomenal.
I know.
That is. That's great.
I know.
We need to do a middle school webinar part 2.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Get the volunteers more involved. Get them talking.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You tried so hard, Tim.
I think it was an interesting, almost reflection of the conversation that you guys were having about how difficult it is to get students to feel safe in participating. And I think that it really is a little bit high stakes in a room full of people that you don't know to speak up in a webinar. So, it's so much safer to type.
Right.
Yeah.
My biggest problem is I just don't multitask well enough to be able to effectively monitor the chat. So
I was trying to keep up as best I could.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there were a bunch of us really helped.
Yeah, I think having multiple people. So, I mean, someone's eyes was on the chat. It seemed like pretty much the whole time, which was good.
Yeah. So, but no, this is a great session. So I am going to stop the recording now.